Alright, so maybe I'm live through YouTube. I'm not sure. Um I see that there's at least two of you guys in there. Am I actually live on YouTube right now? I just need to know that way I can start. Alright, so I'm gonna assume I'm live. So welcome to Red Eye Stream. Welcome to Mad Dodge Productions. We're gonna be going through the Book of the Law tonight. Some Aleister Crowley, something a little bit more occult, a little bit off of my normal content. So, maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't. I'm not really sure. We'll see. Let's let's head over to that. Let's see what's going on.
Introduction 1. The Book. This book was dictated in Cairo between noon and 1 p.m. on 3 successive days, April 8th, 9th, and 10th in the year 1904. The author called himself Aiwass and claimed to be the minister of Hur-Par Krat, that is, a messenger from the forces ruling this earth at present, as will be explained later on. How could he prove that he was in fact a being of a kind superior to any of the human race, and so entitled to speak with authority? Evidently he must show knowledge and power such as no man has ever been known to possess. He showed his knowledge chiefly by the use of cipher or cryptogram in certain passages to set forth recondite facts, including some events which had yet to take place, such that no human being could possibly be aware of them. Thus, the proof of his claim exists in the manuscript itself. It is independent of any human witness. The study of these passages necessarily demands supreme human scholarship to interpret. It needs years of intense application. A great deal has still to be worked out, but enough has been discovered to justify his claim. The most skeptical intelligence is compelled to admit its truth.
Yeah, but are we really? The most intelligent are skeptical to decipher this. I don't necessarily think that's true. Sir, I think you're overreaching here a little bit. And when it comes to Aleister Crowley, you gotta know his background. His background came from a Catholicism background, kind of like mine does. And with that comes some misnomers, right? We we believe in dogma, but we also have a guilt complex, and it's pretty much true all the way around when it comes to Catholics. We pretty much have this guilt complex that comes through, and I think that's what he's overreaching with here is the guilt complex reversed. So instead of being guilty, he's blaming everybody else.
This matter is best studied under the Master Therion, whose years of arduous research have led him to enlightenment. On the other hand, the language of most of the book is admirably simple, clear, and vigorous. No one can read it without being stricken in the very core of his being. The more than human power of Aiwass is shewn by the influence of his master and of the book upon actual events, and history fully supports the claim made by him. These facts are appreciable by everyone, but are better understood with the help of the Master Therion.
Okay, alright. Can you sound any more conceited here? I mean, I know I have an ego. I know I'm egotistical. I get it, right? I'm on YouTube. We all have an ego. But damn, homie. Damn, do you have an ego right now? I mean, seriously. Holy shit, bro.
The full detailed account of the events leading up to the dictation of this book, with facsimile reproduction of the manuscript and an essay by the Master Therion, is published in The Equinox of the Gods. 2. The Universe. This book explains the universe. The elements are Nuit, space, that is, the total of possibilities of every kind, and Hadit, any point which has experience of these possibilities. This idea is, for literary convenience, symbolized by the Egyptian goddess Nuit, a woman bending over like the arch of the night sky. Hadit is symbolized as a winged globe at the heart of Nuit. Every event is a uniting of some one monad with one of the experiences possible to it. Every man and every woman is a star. That is, an aggregate of such experiences, constantly changing with each fresh event, which affects him or her either consciously or subconsciously.
Okay, I can actually get behind that idea. Every person themselves are an independent being. Every person themselves, have their own contribute. They contribute to society in some way. Every individual does, and that's pretty much what he's saying there. I can agree with that. You know, that is agreeable with me. But so far, you're losing me, dude. You really are. And like, we're what, 4 minutes in?
Each one of us has thus an universe of his own, but it is the same universe for each one as soon as it includes all possible experience. This implies the extension of consciousness to include all other consciousness. In our present stage, the object that you see is never the same as the one I see. We infer that it is the same because your experience tallies with mine on so many points that the actual differences of our observation are negligible. For instance, if a friend is walking between us, you see only his left side, I see his right. But we agree that it is the same man, although we may differ not only as to what we may see of his body, but as to what we know of his qualities. This conviction of identity grows strong.
Okay, see, this is why I wish I had somebody else in here with me. That right there is an interesting idea to actually dive into. The fact that you can see the same person and have two different images of them. That is an interesting perspective. That is a conversation that should be had. So I will definitely give it to Crowley on that one. You definitely got my attention there, sir.
Stronger as we see him more often and get to know him better. Yet all the time, neither of us can know anything of him at all beyond the total impression made on our respective minds. The above is an extremely crude attempt to explain a system which reconciles all existing schools of philosophy. 3. The Law of Thelema. This book lays down a simple code of conduct. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
Yeah, here we go. Alright. Alright, so, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. What does that exactly mean? Do what you want to, and that is all that matters, is really what that means, right? And I'm gonna switch over and I'm gonna check out the chat. You guys aren't saying anything yet. There is 3 of you in there though. When it comes to you guys, what do you mean by do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law? Do you agree with that? Like, I would like some feedback here. And I guess if I'm not gonna get any, I'm doing this solo, so I'm gonna continue with the video. I'm gonna act like I'm just making a recording here. But I would like some feedback on that issue right there. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Do you agree with that? If so, why? If not, why? I would like to know.
Love is the law, love under will. There is no law beyond do what thou wilt. This means that each of us stars is to move on our own true orbit, as marked out by the nature of our position, the law of our growth, the impulse of our past experiences. All events are equally lawful, and every one necessary in the long run, for all of us, in theory. But in practice, only one act is lawful for each one of us at any given moment. Therefore, duty consists in determining to experience the right event from one moment of consciousness to another. Each action or emotion is an act of love, the uniting with one or another.
Wait a minute. Each action or uniting is an action of love. And each moment that, and I think he continues here and goes, that you unite is also an act of love. Not necessarily true, is it? Really, in reality? Aren't you kind of going on a false premise here? Really? I don't think you actually understand the real world. I don't think you actually get it. It's an interesting perspective, though.
Other part of Nuit. Each such act must be under will, chosen so as to fulfill and not to thwart the true nature of the being concerned. The technical methods of achieving this are to be studied in magic, or acquired by personal instruction from the Master Therion and...
Okay, so when he says magic, it's not MAGIK or whatever. It's not magic, spelt the normal way. It's spelt a different way. He's talking about paganism. He's talking about the occult, aspect. He's not talking about, Penn and Teller, Chris Angel. He's not talking about them. I just wanted that to be made clear. He's talking about a different form of magic. Like, there is two different words here. So, that's what he's talking about.
And his appointed assistants. 4. The New Eon. The third chapter of the book is difficult to understand and may be very repugnant to many people born before the date of the book, April 1904. It tells us the characteristics of the period on which we are now entered. Superficially, they appear appalling. We see some of them already with terrifying clarity. But fear not! It explains that certain vast stars or aggregates of experience may be described as gods. One of these is in charge of the destinies of this planet for periods of 2,000 years. In the history of the world, as far as we know accurately, are 3 such gods. Isis, the mother, when the universe was conceived as simple nourishment drawn directly from her. This period is marked by matriarchal government. Next, beginning 500 BC, Osiris, the father, when the universe was imagined as catastrophic, love, death, resurrection, as the method by which experience was built up. This corresponds to patriarchal systems. Now, Horus, the child, in which we come to perceive events as a continual growth partaking in its elements of both these methods, and not to be overcome by circumstance. This
is an interesting concept. So what he's saying here is, okay, we went through different cycles, right? The first cycle was the mother, the creator of all humanity. And then the next was the father. He created the hierarchy. He created the order. He brought order to chaos. And now we're in the stage of the child. where we're rebelling against said order. I'm not saying he's correct. I'm saying it's an interesting idea, though. Like, it's an interesting concept to actually look at and think about.
The present period involves the recognition of the individual as the unit of society. We realize ourselves as explained in the first paragraphs of this essay. Every event, including death, is only one more accretion to our experience, freely willed by ourselves from the beginning and therefore also predestined. This god, Horus, has a technical title, Heru-Ra-Ha, a combination of twin gods, Ra-Hur-Khut and Hur-Par-Krat. The meaning of this doctrine must be studied in magic. He is symbolized as a hawk-headed god enthroned. He rules the present period of 2,000 years, beginning in 1904. Everywhere his government is taking root. Observe for yourselves the decay of the sense of sin, the growth of innocence and irresponsibility, the strange modifications of the reproductive instinct with a tendency to become bisexual or epicene, the childlike confidence in progress combined with nightmare fear of catastrophe against.
Okay, this is where I might get a little bit too edgy for you guys. And I'll apologize in advance. But, he has a fucking point. Look at the fact that, nowadays, teenage girls are automatically bisexual. Nowadays, we glorify transsexuals. Why? Why are we going down this path, this road? Why? Exactly. I don't think you could tell me why. I think you're just gonna say, how dare you judge them? Fair enough. How dare I judge them? But why exactly? What exactly is leading them down this path? What is it? Why do you feel like you're not a woman when you're a woman? Why do you feel like you're not a man when you're a man? Why do you decide that, hey, I want to be bisexual in my teens and then grow out of it? Because let's face it, people, most women grow out of it, don't they? Don't they? I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I doubt you really can. Most women grow out of this shit. Okay? No, the fact is, the culture itself is tainted. The culture itself is steering you in that direction. And that's a problem. It's a problem that needs to be addressed, honestly.
Against which we are yet half unwilling to take precautions. Consider the outcrop of dictatorships, only possible when moral growth is in its earliest stages, and the prevalence of infantile cults like communism, fascism, pacifism, health crazes, occultism in nearly all its forms, religions sentimentalized to the point of practical extinction. Consider the popularity of the cinema, the wireless, the football pools and guessing competitions, all devices for soothing fractious infants, no seed of purpose in them. Consider sport.
Okay, JH, as you like to be called now, 40 ounce. Get the fuck in the podcast room. You're an admin. Jump in. I could use some help. And I would like some back and forth on this one, because a lot of what Crowley is saying makes sense, but a lot of it also is prophetic. And the way I mean is prophetic is, like, look at the culture itself. It's creating bisexuals, it's creating this, it's creating that. You do realize this guy was talking in the 30s, right? And you do realize where we are today, right? I mean, this was prophetic. This dude knew what he was talking about.
the babyish enthusiasms and rages which it excites, whole nations disturbed by disputes between boys. Consider war, the atrocities which occur daily and leave us unmoved and hardly worried. We are children. How this new eon...
Okay, 40 ounce, you're in here. What's up, bro? Um, so what do you know about Aleister Crowley, and how do you feel about what's coming through the airwaves right now?
Well, I'm unable to watch you, but I'll tell you this much. I am on the same level of drunkenness, and I am willing to speak about the light, edgy topic. So let's fucking go for it.
Well, okay, so drunk factor, yeah, we're probably up there. But no, the thing is, when it comes to Crowley, man, he's talking about he's talking about how society itself is creating bisexuals and creating um
Yeah.
God, no, this is gonna be horrible. It's gonna be horrible. All right, let's do it. Creating societal scum that really deserve nothing but bottom feeder status.
Yeah.
Okay, like that's where we're at right now, and
Yeah.
he was talking about it in the 30s, man.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and here's the thing: is that I mentioned in the chat the mouse utopia experiment. That was, it was essentially a behavioral experiment conducted amongst mice. And it's a relatively complex experiment. I'm sure you could find some videos on YouTube explaining it in a more simplistic sense. But I mean, Aleister Crowley is, you said he was talking about these things in the 30s, and the reality of the matter is that I think he was a little far ahead of his time, because the mouse experiments were conducted in the 70s, and we're really only experiencing the ramifications, or what we could possibly conceive of as the ramifications of these the society that we're living in, right? We're only just now kind of experiencing the onset of these things that were relatively edgy even back then. But essentially, the hypothesis is of the mouse utopia experiment is that, how do I put this in a kind of layman's sense? When you are devoid of purpose, when an individual is devoid of purpose, you will essentially take on whatever it is that your environment demands that you be. Right. And you saw this in the mice that were taking part in this experiment. Right? These kind of rat utopias, these enclosed spaces, i.e. inner cities, in which rats were essentially...
You still there? Did I get cut off or something? Hello? Okay, I don't think I was cut off because I'm still alive. Yeah, 40, you there? Okay, this is what I'm gonna do. While I wait on 40 to get back, I'm gonna hit play on the Book of the Law.
of Horus will develop, how the child will grow up. These are for us to determine, growing up ourselves in the way of the law of Thelema under the enlightened guidance of the Master Therion. 5. The next step. Democracy daughters. Ferocious fascism, cackling communism, equally frauds, cavort crazily all over the globe. They are hemming us in. They are abortive births of the child, the new eon of Horus. Liberty.
Okay, I have to comment on that. Capitalist fascism, crackling communism. That is an interesting take on the situation politically. And I can't say I disagree with him, honestly. And 40 ounce, are you back yet? What's up? No, he's not back. Okay. So we're gonna wait on him to jump back in. So I'm gonna hit play again on the stream.
Liberty stirs once more in the womb of time. Evolution makes its changes by anti-socialistic ways. The abnormal man who foresees the trend of the times and adapts circumstance intelligently is laughed at, persecuted, often destroyed by the herd, but he and his heirs, when the crisis comes, are survivors. Above us today hangs a danger never yet paralleled in history.
Yeah, okay, so what he says there is it's pretty much like, let's break it down to the most simple terms. The fucking, not the anti-vaxxer, but the prepper. The guy that's back there saying, you know, shit's gonna hit the fan, you guys. I know it is, and I'm ready for it. And he actually gets ready for it. That's what Crowley is talking about right now. He's saying, you know, that is the person you need to look to. And I don't think he's necessarily wrong. You know? Like, maybe you should look to that guy. Because that guy obviously had the future in mind, where you didn't.
We suppress the individual in more and more ways. We think in terms of the herd. War no longer kills soldiers, it kills all indiscriminately. Every new measure of the most democratic and autocratic governments is communistic in essence. It is always restriction. We are all treated as imbecile children. DORA, the Shops Acts, the motoring laws, Sunday suffocation, the censorship. They won't trust us to cross the roads at will. Fascism is like communism and dishonest into the bargain. The dictators suppress.
Fascism is like communism and disheartened to the honest. Right? I mean, where is he going wrong here? I see there is a couple of you in the chat. I am not speaking into the wind. I'm at least talking to a couple of people. Where is he wrong here? Like, seriously. I like the Book of the Law, and I like it for the reason that it's kind of a libertarian manifesto, and it's not even trying to be, but it is.
All art, literature, theater, music, news that does not meet their requirements. Yet the world.
Okay, alright. So 40, you're back. Alright, so what's going on, man? I had asked you a question, and then I moved past it because I started playing the Book of the Law again. So I got, the Book of the Law.
Okay.
The Book of the Law at this point is looking like a libertarian manifesto to me. You know what I mean? Like, this dude was a straight up fucking libertarian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in essence a lot of kind of spiritualists or gurus of the past are very libertarian, but I think they're very libertarian partially because they do in essence have something to gain for it. You know, in a sense that religion has always competed with the state, right? You know, looking back through Europe, or you know, looking back through China today and its conflicts with Tibet, you know, the state is always competing with religion to a certain extent. So I mean, you know, don't get me wrong. I think every Catholic priest, every guru, and every rabbi and every imam has a little bit of a right to be a libertarian in essence.
Alright, so, looking at Aleister Crowley himself, he was a piece of shit, right? He was a heroin addict. He really, he was a piece of shit human being. But do you think that discounts his ideals?
No, no, I mean, well, no, not necessarily. I mean, that'd be like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? I mean, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Trump, but I absolutely fucking adore him due to the fact that he gives me many chuckles, right? It's not as if everything, every little thing that Hillary Clinton says, for instance, is absolutely wrong. Right. It's to a certain degree, you can categorize someone as being wrong or right, whatever it is your moral or economic compass is. Right. Depends on how much you want to split hairs and parse things out. But I mean, you can't entirely discount someone because, they're a heroin addict or something. I mean,
Okay,
I'd much prefer to address their ideas.
okay, so yeah, you'd rather attack the ideals behind the argument, not the person necessarily. So like, you can be a total piece of shit human being. Like, I'm, s- I agree. Aleister Crowley was a piece of shit human being. Okay, he ran a cult. People died there. He had like fucking 6 kids. 5 of them he didn't take care of them. One of them he took care
Yeah.
of, and that was only because he was old and fucking washed up, right? He died in a fucking boarding house, broke as fuck. When he was born, rich, and fucking, he was a lord in England. He was a lord. Like, how do you die broke as fuck?
No, meth is a hell of a drug. I'm sure that had a fair amount to do with his downfall. I mean, looking back through history, I mean, you find all kinds of weird people obsessed with like the occult, right? It's well known that Thomas Jefferson had a copy of the Quran, for instance. It's well known, and that would be rather taboo at the time. Trust me. I'm sure you know that, but maybe the average person doesn't. There are all kinds of weird secret societies that take place, throughout time. There are all kinds of, weird sects of, religious people that will congregate in the shadows or what have you. But, they don't all lead to financial ruin. These weird ideals, so it's safe to assume you could probably blame hard drugs for his, financial ruin.
Yeah,
Although that doesn't necessarily mean that, any kind of point he made, whether it was, philosophical or spiritual or whatever, doesn't mean it was necessarily invalid.
no, it doesn't, and because like, okay, the book of the law, it opens with, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." How can I disagree with that? You know what I mean? Come on, 40. You know me. How can I disagree with that? Like, this is my religion. God damn it.
No, I mean, yeah, do what thou will is a very common. I mean, it's not. It has always been.
You still there? I lost you again. I think Discord's messing up again. Okay. While I wait on 40 to get back, I'm gonna go ahead and hit play again. I think we lost him again. I'm sure he'll be back in a few. So it is what it is. Discord's been messing up, guys.
Only moves by the light of genius, the herd will be destroyed in mass. The establishment of the law of Thelema is the only way to preserve individual liberty and to assure the future of the race. In the words of the famous paradox of the Comte de Phoenix, the absolute rule of the state shall be a function of the absolute liberty of each individual will. All men and women are invited to cooperate with the Master Therion in this, the great work. O.M. Liber al val legis, subfigura 220, as delivered by 93 equals 418 to 666.
God. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom? Oh gosh, I don't even know what I was talking about anymore. I did totally lost track. I was on a philosophical roll, and then I totally lost my marbles. My internet's been cutting out. It kind of dipped out a little bit, so MC might have to remind me as what crazy rambling I was going on about.
You're going to have to wait for Magic Center to remind you. That might be kind of difficult.
Oh gosh.
I honestly didn't. I was not aware of what you were saying.
Oh.
Because you did cut out very early on in your rant or your role that you were on.
Oh boy. Well, let me summarize really quick. I don't think that necessarily there's any incentive for churches to engage in like essentially, economic dissuasions or anything like that. Every religion is relatively laissez-faire. Do what you want and don't, go about harming your, fellow believer. But I mean,
that's not necessarily true, though. Like Catholicism, no, we don't get to do what we want. We have to go and fucking sit in a booth and tell our fucking priest what exactly we did, when we did it. Like, I don't know. Is this dude writing down my sexual acts and fucking jacking off to it later? I have no idea. But, like, I'm still in the booth fucking saying it.
Well, I mean, here's the point, though, is that, the kind of larger point that you were getting at is that every religion is relatively laissez-faire in the sense that it doesn't inhibit you, economically speaking, because it would economically benefit a church if you were to go out and make, $100,000 a year. Because, that's more money that you're giving back to your local parish or, your Latter-day Saints church or Catholic church or, whatever Protestant or, whatever denomination you are. So, I mean, churches don't exist, in essence, to regulate you in an economic sense. They exist to regulate you in a more moral sense. I mean, even then, it's it's relative to the morals of the time to some extent.
Yeah, but when we're talking about somebody like Aleister Crowley, like we are tonight, okay, yeah. We're talking about an occultist. Okay, so we're not in the religion aspect. We're in the cult area. Okay, that's where they branded him. That's where he lies. You know what I mean?
Can cults not be religions? Can religions not be cults?
It depends. Just ask Catholicism. Yes, they can. But
okay, well, I mean, I think that Catholicism is maybe a little bit biased in this area in the fact that maybe they don't want to be associated with Aleister Crowley. I think we should take a bit of a third-party view in terms of how we view him, in a sense that he was a religious cult leader, and he probably did exact some kind of tithe or, I don't know, what would you call it?
Well, let's get down to it, right? Because now you and MC are here, so I doubt we're gonna get back to the Book of the Law. I'm probably gonna tag it right there and then get back to it another night.
Well, I mean, no, we can continue. Sorry, I didn't want to disrupt anything.
Oh no, you're not disrupting nothing. What I'm saying though is let's be real about Crowley. He was in the sex magic, dude. They were fucking having sex and drinking goat's blood, bro. I mean, the shit wasn't fucking normal.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't normal at all. And I mean, there's, I mean, here's the problem: is we can, go by, gosh, degrees of separation, if you will. Aleister Crowley was relatively involved with, some folks who worked at NASA, and there were just by chance some folks who worked at NASA that were also Nazis, and some Nazis held some relatively shall we say, fringe beliefs that weren't exactly in line with Catholicism, as it was known in the
or
40s.
like they just wanted to kill the Jews, and we still hired them. Yeah, that's cool, I guess, because we made it cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, no, I mean, well, and that kind of lends credibility to what we were talking about earlier before my internet decided to, kind of take a bit of a shit on me, is the fact that, Aleister Crowley may have been this weird, methed out, practicing sex magic, talking to NASA people kind of person. But I mean, that doesn't necessarily discredit the fact that, he was talking about events that were to come 50 some odd years later.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at when I was going through like the first chapter and a half of the Book of the Law. Like, he's sitting there, he's saying, look, these guys are gonna do surveillance. These guys are gonna watch you. These guys are gonna do this and do that. And it all came true. How did he know? I don't know. Did he guess? Maybe.
No.
No. All right. I mean, he's looking at the programs that were already existing, and he's talking about them. I mean, how difficult is that? How difficult is it to know that NASA, all right, is involved with putting up, satellites that are part, especially when you're talking to the people that are doing it, all right, that their purpose is to spy on the enemy, all right, with photo reconnaissance. That's not, rocket science. Okay, how is it that people understand that if you're talking and you're putting your information out there in the ether via electromagnetic waves, that somebody can tap into those electromagnetic waves because they're circling the Earth, all right, and then listen in? It doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand what that means.
Well, I mean, maybe at the time, but I mean, this wasn't exactly, lay cell phones wasn't exactly knowledge. But I mean, this is definitely someone who was a cult leader that had access to people who were, a little up there in terms of lay top secret intelligence.
And we do know that he did. He was a member of the Golden Dawn, and the Golden Dawn had a lot of big figures involved in it. So,
yes,
he did have more info than you and I would, automatically. I get what you're saying, MC. I understand. It's just he's coming from what? The 20s, the 30s, and saying these things like it's common knowledge nowadays.
If he's talking to NASA, he's not talking about from the 20s and 30s.
No, he wasn't talking about NASA. He was saying in the Book of the Law that the society is gonna look at you and they're gonna surveil you and they're gonna fucking track you and do this and that. Like, he was laying out what they're doing right now in 2020. It's insane.
That's like saying that Animal Farm.
I would go
with
1984. Yeah, I would go with 1984 on that one. But I get your point.
Difference.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that, I mean, when was radio invented? It was invented literally on the dawning of like 1900. I think it was like 1897 or 1898 or something like that. So I mean, it's just like even then, relative to the 1920s, something like radio, it exists. It's not unthinkable to assume that someone could tap into these magical radio waves and listen to your every word that's being transmitted. I mean, it's not necessarily due to the fact that he had some
Yeah,
arcane knowledge of bestowed upon him by the gods. I mean, it's just I
yeah.
think it's natural progression of events.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say is 40. Like, I'm not saying he is, a prophet. I'm just saying it's interesting to hear his words and look at him from a current take. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
hey, I see you in the chat, Kim. What's up, girl? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. But no, I I understand he's not a prophet, right? But he has some shit to say, man.
Mhm.
And once again, you guys haven't explained to me how do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law is a bad idea. Because I think it's a good idea.
Do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. Well,
You think
as long as
you
I
think
don't,
that's
as long as I don't break your leg or pick your pocket.
whoa, 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 whoa. Now you're putting caveats on it. Was Crawley was
That's
Crawley putting caveats on it?
that's fair. That's fair. You got me. You got me on that one. You got me on that one.
Okay? That's the problem with people like Aleister Crowley is he wasn't putting any caveats on that. He was basically saying go back to the law of the jungle. Okay. Do you really want to go back to the law of the jungle? Is that really a good idea for society as a whole?
I don't know. Might makes right, and I think I might be the only person in California who has a gun, so I might be in favor of that.
Hey, you and my aunt are gonna hang out then, because she has a gun too. Like, well,
He's got a competitor he has to deal
no,
with.
she
Is that what you're
lives in
saying?
East LA, dude. She has to have a gun. Like, it's just how it is.
That is a fair point. Yes. Yeah, it's go on, Matt.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, MC, you have a point, right? Do we want to go back to the law of the jungle? Might makes right. Um, no, not necessarily. Um, but what I do want to go back to is I leave you alone, you leave me alone. You trespass on my property, we have a problem. You know what I mean? Like that's
How do you resolve when both people claim the same piece of land?
well, me myself, I'd resolve it with a gun.
Okay. Now
Okay,
what if he's a better shot?
That really sucks for
What
me.
if he's younger and a little bit faster now? You're
MC
saying go back to the law of the jungle, right?
Yeah,
MC stop.
yeah. Well,
He's
no, and that sucks for me, right? like that's a bad day for me. I don't know. Um, I
MC. You
do.
need to stop. He's scared of roads. Don't frighten him.
God damn it! Don't bring up roads. Stop it. No. Oh, okay. All honestly, what I actually believe is, a representative republic. So the way we would resolve this is we would go to court. Honestly, that's the way we would resolve it. Is we would go to court. Um, and
Right.
if I lose in court, then I lose in court, I suppose. I mean, what else am I gonna do at that
Okay.
point?
Let's take the opposite stance for the moment. Okay. Let's say you win in court, right? And the guy you win against says, I don't recognize the court. Then what are you gonna do?
That's when I pull out the gun.
Well, once again, if that's the attitude that he's younger, he's faster, he's better than you. In fact, he's not only that, he's also got four of his buddies who work together with him to make sure that if you get him, they get you.
Gosh,
Yeah.
it's a shame there's no like centralized form of like authority and law to like enforce those dictates. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know, right? Like it's horrible. But no,
I know.
Totally, I understand what you're saying, and you know what we're gonna go with here? Yeah, they get me, but then I got what 3 sons that are gonna go get them. Now we got Hatfields and McCoys, bitch. Like, that's what you're dealing with at this point.
Back to the law of the jungle, where you're dealing with tribes, right? Back to the Neanderthal times.
Yes, and I would hope my sons would be down with that. Like somebody
You
takes
hope your
me
son.
out. No, that's all my will. If somebody fucking takes me out, you better avenge me.
Avenge me, boys! Avenge me! Is that your stance now?
Yes, damn right it is. Why wouldn't it be? Why is that not your stance? I mean, come on now. Like, what if I just roll up? I roll up in Arizona and I'm like, yeah, look here, you little bitch boy. Fuck you. Fuck your drones. Fuck your Nazi penguins. And fuck your fucking mother. And I shoot you in the face. Don't you want your son to kill my ass? I would.
What if I paid your son?
What? Paid him to do what? Not kill me?
Oh.
Not kill you? I mean, I guess.
Well, look at it this way. You want your dad's land. Your dad's been a pain in my ass the whole time, right? If I get rid of your dad for you, it's not on you. No harm comes to you, but you get to inherit everything. What do you think?
Oh, that's some dirty pool.
No, that's smart shit right there, Mad. See,
that. Go ahead.
you might not like it, Mad, but that's what we call capitalism. Now, you might be a filthy socialist, Mad, with your,
Did you just call me a
workers' rights.
socialist? Are you kidding me right now? I'm almost
Listen, that's
offended.
what we call capital.
I'm almost offended.
That's just capitalism, Mad. You got to deal with it. Law of the jungle and so forth. You got to deal with that capitalism.
No, this isn't okay. You don't get to pay my son to just let you kill me. That's not alright.
I will hire, me and MC will hire whatever Bitcoin assassins we need to do to deal with you, to get your land. Okay. Your Oregon land or whatever it is. What do you have, redwoods? Or redwood, or is wood worth something, MC?
Okay.
I don't know, fuck it.
Okay, first off, the redwoods are in Northern California, you dumb bastard. Oh, man.
Whatever. I don't care.
I'm sorry I had to.
Like the mighty Spartans, my wall extends as far as my spear does, MC. Or, I mean, Mad, you'll never get me.
Yeah, yeah. See,
You'll never fucking
you
get
don't
me.
even know who you're mad at.
Oh, no, I know who I'm mad at. I know who I'm mad at. It's really early in the morning. That's the problem.
Oh, man, this is amazing. This stream worked out way better than I thought it was gonna.
Is this going the way you expected it to?
Yeah, no, I thought I was gonna be by myself, just listening to the Book of the Law and talking shit. No, this is way better. All right, so let's check this out, man. First off, you don't get to actually dictate what individuals do. You don't actually get to do that even on a state level. We do have this thing called the 10th Amendment. Any rights not given to the federal government or the states are given.
What does
to
that
the
have to
people.
do with Crawley's view of the world?
It has to do with his freedom of choice.
No, it doesn't have to do with his freedom of choice because he didn't recognize any authority over him. So you can't just start artificially applying authorities that exist in the world, especially to a person who was talking about how the authorities don't exist over it.
Okay. That's a fair point. Can you elaborate a little bit? And what I mean by elaborate is, okay, let's extend that out. He was still a citizen, right? He still had to obey by laws, didn't he?
Did he have to obey by law? He didn't think that he had to obey by the law. The only reason he obeyed the laws was because he knew they would come after him, right? If he got caught. And even then, to say that he obeyed the law, there was a couple of areas of the law at the time that he definitely was skirting. Let's be perfectly frank about this.
Yes. In Great Britain, they had a law against pornographic material, and he wrote some books under a pseudonym where he broke that law blatantly.
There were laws against homosexuality that he broke blatantly as well.
That is true as well.
All right. I'm not trying to make a moral evaluation there. I'm talking about an evaluate from a legal perspective at the time. Okay.
Oh, so I'm not taking it as you're going moralistic here. No, because he was in the sex magic, and they did some weird shit in France. Or no, it was Italy, actually. And we'll get to that. They did some weird shit in Italy, dude. Like, it wasn't good.
Well, what do you expect?
I expect you not to fuck goats, okay? And drink goat blood. You know what I mean? I expect you to be better than that. Is that horrible of me?
Well, you can look at it that way if you want.
Because that's what he did. Like, you want to talk about Italy? Yeah, they fucked goats. They drank goat blood, and a woman fucking died. She died because they were drinking this fucked up shit. Dude, that's not okay. It's not okay no matter how you fucking rearrange it in your fucking moralistic mind. It's not alright. This woman died because you were a sick fuck.
Her body, her choice, Matt. I don't know what to tell you. Gosh.
You're really pulling that card. Really?
I kind of like it. I think it works well.
You mean, Mad, sorry, Mad, you mean the same card that you pulled when I said major cities should probably be in fucking lockdown?
Oh.
Is that the same card that you're talking about? Sorry.
Yeah, you're an asshole, but okay.
No, I know, man.
Yeah, no, we're on the same page. You're an asshole, but okay. I got you. MC, you can't pull that card. Come on. Drinking goat's blood? Bitch dies? Like, what the fuck?
You underestimate his power.
All right, have you ever drinking an animal's blood before?
No. Like, why would you do that?
Because it's traditional in certain areas.
Yes, when hunting, you shoot your first deer. No, actually, I have gone hunting. I have put down a buck. No, I did not drink the blood. I'm white. I don't have to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I know it's horrible, but yeah, fair enough, right? Like, that's it. That's all I gotta say. I'm white. I don't have to.
Okay, but you understand the comparison there.
Yes, Native Americans do that sometimes. Not all tribes do it.
So is Crawley expecting that if you drink the goat's blood that it's going to kill somebody?
Why are you drinking goat's blood during sex? They were performing sex magic, and
why were you expecting magic to come out of having sex?
The orgasm, actually. Actually, he had a reason for why sex magic worked.
Yeah, because he got a lot of people to sit up there and take somebody who had the physical appeal of a goat, all right, to sleep with it, and have sex with it. Free.
Okay. In his perspective, sex magic itself came about because at the point of orgasm you have more energy, more power to put towards the spell itself.
What his point of view was is I get to have sex, all right, no matter what they look like, no matter what I look like. That's what his point of view was. I get my rocks off.
You're probably right, but that wasn't what his philosophy was. See, I think we're talking past each other here. I'm talking about his
I
philosophy and not him himself, because he was a piece of shit. You're probably right. He was a total piece of shit. You're probably totally fucking right. You know what I mean? He did all of this for selfish fucking measures. He did all of it just to get his own rocks off. I agree with you. But what he's trying to portray is different.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what he's trying to portray. I mean, communists are trying to portray, perfect society where everyone gets what they, are owed. But does it happen in reality? I mean, no, it doesn't. It's communism is pretty shit. So I mean, it doesn't matter what Aleister Crowley is trying to portray. What matters is what happens in actuality. And I mean, what actually happens is that this man turns out to be a sexual deviant. And he ends up trying to get people to do some weird shit because he thinks it's kinky or what.
I mean, he was pretty successful. I gotta give him credit for
that. That's true. So I mean, it doesn't matter what people are trying to do in principle. It matters what happens in actuality. And what happens in actuality is that this is a guy on fucking meth and hookers.
Well, yeah, no, and he died alone by himself in a boarding house withdrawing from heroin. That's how he died. He did not die a hero. He died a piece of shit. Just like he lived. Let's be real about this. He died just like he lived. A piece of shit.
Well, don't do heroin.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't. That's one thing, I've done a lot of drugs in my day. I've done LSD. I've fucked around with fucking dope. I've done a few lines of coke, when I felt the fucking need to. The thing is, though, I never let it run my life. And I never touched heroin. And I knew when I tried morphine that it wasn't good for me. I knew to step away. I knew my own limitation. I don't understand these people that get hooked on heroin. I don't get it. I really don't. Like you are automatically know when you're like fucking 13 years old not to do heroin. You know what I mean? Like they fucking tell you in school not to do this shit. Like I get it, you want to rebel, but how about you rebel with a fucking joint or something? Like what are you doing?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that people tell you to do or not do. Whether it benefits you or not isn't necessarily something that a younger person takes into consideration. So let's say for instance, let's take like today's youth, for instance, right? Someone today might have a kid and say, "Oh, well, I don't feel like breastfeeding my kid." I mean, they're breast pumps, they're formulas. There's synthetic and alternatives to breastfeeding. I mean, but the problem is that people neglect the benefits of breastfeeding itself and say, "Oh well, I don't feel like breastfeeding because it hurts me nipples."
Hey,
But the reality of the matter is that
40.
breastfeeding.
Sorry,
What?
40. I gotta interrupt you. We got $5.
Yes.
Perspective. My grandpa studied in Sicily at 1920. I don't know what that means, but he freaked out at an ox butchered in the streets and kids with buckets catching it for a source of protein. Oh, I think he's talking about the food thing we
Yeah,
were talking about, or whatever, the blood.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. But that was a $5 super chat. That's why I interrupted you. I have to, when it comes to super
No,
chats.
no, that's actually no. Dash brings up a good point in terms of like the cultural perspective of that. I mean, the reality of the matter is that people in the West, for instance, like Dash said, people in the West, there are traditions that kind of harken back to the, shall we say, older alternatives of survival. Right? We don't necessarily have to engage in the drinking of ox blood or the drinking of goat's blood or whatever the case might be. But there's still places in the world where it's just like, in Africa, there are traditions in Africa still to this day where, you will essentially put a tourniquet on a cow, pluck the vein with a needle and then drink the blood. And then wait for it to coagulate and then take the tourniquet off. But I mean, these are kind of modes of survival, and these are traditions that have built up over hundreds, if not 1,000 years or whatever the case. So I mean, something like that isn't unusual. It's primarily culture. It's whether or not this mode of culture is outdated, or whether we still need it, or how much we want it to be around. Have you?
No, I tend to agree with you there. Uh,
Yeah, actually, MC and 40, can you guys roll on real quick? I gotta go use the restroom.
what a surprise! I shouldn't be so brutal to him. But no, the thing about Aleister Crowley is a lot. It's the same problem that you see. This is my opinion of this. I shouldn't say problem, right? But it's the same scenario of a flim flam man, right? Of somebody who's saying, okay, here's my justification for this, and you can talk about it from the cultural perspective that he was he was engaging in. Okay, for example, World War I had just happened. Okay, and let's be honest, World War One was horrifying to a large extent. Okay, you have several actions taking place. Okay? You have prohibition in the United States kicking off. Okay? You have the Spanish flu going on the world. The world has dramatically shrunk in that you can get from point A to point B anywhere in the world in a time frame that was inconceivable. People in the past, the people 100 years before that. If you take a look at the turn of the century in the 1800s, okay, to go from the west coast of the United States to the east coast of the United States, it is a 2-month trip, right? At best. Right? Modern technology has changed that you can do it in a couple of days, all right, with just trains. And then you see the advent of the plane and how much closer the world is getting to the planes. You're having the first Atlantic flights are taking place, right? All these things are shrinking the world. You're rubbing elbows with cultures, all right, that you have not, and I mean rubbing cultures. You may have read about a culture, all right, about a book about the people in Borneo, but now you're actually meeting people from Borneo because they're traveling. You can actually go out there and experience, and it's changing the world in a lot of ways. And one of the reactions, all right, to World War I and how all this went down was the attitude of, well, you know what? People, it's so easy to die now. Okay. There was a nihilistic mentality that took over, especially in the Western world, toward look at how life is. You can die so easily. We are surviving here. Luckily, we're not dealing with the problems like Germany and some of these other areas. Well, but it's still so easy to die. Look at what's been happening. Look at the Spanish flu. To hell with it. You might as well live for today. That's the mentality of many of the people that were existing at that time frame. This is the institution of the flappers and so forth. You have you have the women's revolution, right, going around the world, right? Women's rights movement, suffrage, and so forth. All these things are taking place during this time frame. And okay, so what's the upshot of it? The world's having to adjust. Societies are having to adjust. And what's more is they're having to adjust to what does industrialization mean, especially when you're dealing with Great Britain. Okay, and I'm not trying to and the Europeans as a whole. And the reason for that is because the society was far more stratified, right, from these aristocratic mentalities. And even Great Britain, it was still less stratified than many other areas in Europe. But the cultural stratification still existed, right, to a large extent in these areas. You don't have it in the same manner in the United States. In the United States, it's quite a bit different, right? Mainly because the stratification that took place in the United States existed within the minds of the super rich elite, the Vanderbilt, so forth.
I don't even think that, actually. I've been sitting here. I've been back for a few minutes. No. I think it also appeared in the minds of the lower class Southerners. If you look at the 50s and 60s in Southern America, you'll see that culture clash right there.
Well, but okay, there's a difference there, though. Okay, in this regard, I agree that there's a cultural difference between the groups, right? But there isn't an acceptance of in the lower cultures that they're superior to me. There's a difference, and there's a belief in the Southern cultures that they're different than I am, but not that I owe them anything or that they can tell me what to do.
Oh, no, it's the exact opposite. It's I'm better than you,
right.
And how dare you tell me anything?
well, exactly. But you have that's a culture between the two cultural clashes that exist within America. Within the groups in the aristocracy, you got to remember the lords and ladies were in their position because God deigned them so. And even though they didn't necessarily totally accept that, it's the way the society was structured, so they existed within that.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that point. Go ahead, guys.
Well, I think one of the things that... I mean, I absolutely agree with what MC had said previously, but I think one of the... I do agree with Matt as well in a sense that it did... The kind of cultural shakeup did, in fact, extend to the lower class as well. I mean, as I had said previously, Thomas Jefferson had a copy of the Quran, so it's said. But these weird, kind of one-off cultures were only accessible to the upper class, and they were considered largely novelty. There's a king of Sweden, Charles the IV. I don't know. I think it was there's a king of Sweden who, actually really relished Japanese during the late 1800s or mid 1800s. He collected Japanese porcelain. He largely considered Chinese porcelain or Korean porcelain to be actually inferior, and he imported Japanese women to be part of his court and everything like that. And so these things that were once considered relatively exotic are now becoming they're permeating general culture. The average peasant is aware that oh, I believe in God, but wait, what's this Shinto stuff? What's this Islam stuff? I mean, I've heard about it, but I mean, it's starting to make its way around the world. I mean, people are globalizing. There are planes, there's boats, there's automobiles. People are starting to travel and immigrate and everything like this. What are these weird foreign cultures? And so I think one of the reasons that someone like Aleister Crowley had so much power is that you're dealing with a moral kind of disembodiment of what was previously the primary culture, right? A kind of culture in doubt of itself. that once before was a in America, for instance, was a relatively hardworking Protestant, middle and lower class that was owning land or owned slaves or whatever the case was throughout any time period. And now you're getting very different points of view. You're getting very different, economic points of view or cultural points of view. And that really does lend credibility to the fact that, someone like this is able to take advantage of that kind of moral or cultural shakeup and say, oh, how about these other traditions? Oh, aren't they great? Let's have sex and do the orgasm and drink the bloods. Huh? Isn't that a thing that people? It's another kind of methodology of control in a strange way.
Okay, alright, I would like to ask though. Um, when you bring up, like slavery and history in the past, which I understand, that is our historical background. That is fair game. I get it.
Well, I mean, that's everyone's historical background, if you want to be
Exactly,
technical.
exactly. It's totally fair game. But are you calling somebody like me, where my family is from the South? We did own slaves. I didn't, but my family did. Does that automatically make me an evil person?
Well, no. I mean, what your family did in the past has no moral bearing on who you are today as a person, right? You might draw like maybe some kind of cultural significance from it or something. As in, this is where my family was at this point in history, and this is what they were doing. They were cotton farmers or what have you. But I mean, that doesn't hold any bearing on what you are. I mean, you didn't inherit any of that economic benefit of owning slaves or anything. Yeah, I certainly fucking didn't. So I'm certain you didn't either. So it's I don't know. It's all culturally relative to wherever you were at that specific point in time.
I think a better question to have asked, however, was does that make his relatives evil in that time frame?
Well, I mean, that's an equally good question, and I would say, I mean, I would, no, are is the average Muslim or the average Janissary occupying the kind of Slavic nations during the 17 or 1600s, are they evil for owning slaves? Is the average Russian during the 1400s, are they evil for owning slaves? Is anyone evil for owning slaves prior to, whenever we deemed it immoral to own slaves?
Well, I think that's the question that you're asking. Now we're kind of like slipping away from talking about Aleister Crowley
A little bit.
a little bit because I don't think Aleister Crowley owned slaves.
Well, no, he didn't own slaves, but I mean, this was kind of the malaise that I think someone like Aleister Crowley would take advantage of, right? I mean, you're talking about
you're right.
You're talking about huge, like global, like just. I don't want to say it was a global enlightenment because I mean more some cultures today are obviously aren't that enlightened, quote unquote, but I mean a kind of global realization that every culture had during the mid to late 1800s that we are not the only culture. There are people out there that genuinely believe their god is superior to ours. It doesn't matter where you're standing in the. You could be in South America, Asia Minor, Asia, or Africa, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a kind of cultural realization that you're not exactly.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I can see what you're saying there.
Well, no.
Sorry, I don't know if that's too like autistic, but I mean it's it seems as though to me that is exactly what was happening. I mean, you're talking about, in the late 1800s, you're talking about, there are Islamic traditions that kind of, bled over to those Slavic countries that never really dissipated. And, you're talking about Eastern Orthodox cultures that, they're worlds there are worlds in between that of Islam and Christendom, and you're dealing with weird subcultures of Asia that are consistently clashing with each other throughout history and trying to dominate one another. Whether it's through forms of like ancestor worship or Confucianism, Shintoism, whatever the case might be. It's the 1800s are definitely a source of major turmoil, and it kind of has to do with that kind of globalization. So,
Well, but I think it also has to do with industrialization. You deal with new technology.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really where the problem. I shouldn't say the problem. That's really what you're dealing with in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when it comes down to the core of it, I think that when you're talking about the kind of general human condition, I think what it is that humans are not self-conscious until they're self-conscious. And I think that one of the reasons that humans became so self-conscious about their beliefs and their religious ties to their ancestors or cultural ties to their ancestors or whatever the case might be, specific ties to geographical locations, it is specifically because of these technologies. I mean, I think these technologies, like aeroplanes and automobiles and those giant steam engines, they put them on trains, I hear, these days. A lot of that is a side effect of self-realization, or a kind of more, I'm not entirely sure how to put it, because this is unfortunately it's a very complex topic.
Well, I mean, what is the result of industrialization? What is the result of going from an agrarian to an industrial society? What is one of the big advantages of doing so? The biggest advantage of going from a rural society or an agrarian society into an industrial society is free time. and understand what I mean by this. Prior to industrialization, prior to mechanization, your time had to be devoted on the acquisition of basic needs. Okay, completely and wholly to that point.
Yeah, but
there were exceptions.
No, but I can go the opposite way, MC. I can tell you what's the benefit of agrarian society. The benefit is the closeness with your neighbors.
Okay.
The benefit is the fact that you grow for half the year, and the other half of the year you're off. Like, you don't have to work for half the year.
You weren't off. You were see, that's the misnomer. Everybody thinks that in that kind of a society that you're just off. No, you're not off. You're sitting there trying to deal with the other aspects of life. Okay? Specifically, do I have enough food? How do I ration this food? All right. And if we're not talking about food, you're still dealing with the fact you gotta acquire water, and you still gotta acquire warmth and shelter.
Yeah.
And you've got to make the idea that these guys were just in the wintertime, they just sat around and drank beer, all right, and played tiddlywinks is nonsensical. That's when they would have to go out and supplement their food, and they try to hunt for deer and everything else, all right, whether it was on the king's land or not, in order to survive the winter. And many of them had to deal with the fact that they weren't going to survive the winter. Their children weren't going to survive the winter.
That is very true. And go ahead, 40. Go for it.
Well, I definitely think that you're onto something in terms of, having downtime. But I think that downtime has become something that is relatively passive in terms of like modernity. Because the goalposts of what constitutes the bare minimum to survive have constantly shifted throughout, just the course of humanity. 100 years ago, the bare minimum of survival was, how do I get through this fucking Spanish flu? The bare minimum of survival, in terms of the agrarian, more the flyover states. It was, how do I farm my crop, and how do I deal with this dust bowl, or how do I deal
Well,
with, all
okay.
these things. But now the average person is not necessarily rationing in terms of how do I make my food last through the winter.
Okay,
Now
but
they're dealing with like, how do I pay for Netflix? So I
okay,
think the goal.
but it was 40 ounce. Okay, so here's where I'm gonna challenge you a little bit. All right, so you're on the West
Mhm.
Coast like I am, right? I was just down in Louisiana, dude.
Okay.
It still looks like the Civil War happened 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at shacks on the side of the road. They still have homesteading laws, dude.
Okay.
This shit is fucking 100 years ago down there.
Well, no, it's not. I mean, do those people still, do they not have internet? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably not like the most amazing internet in the face of the earth. They probably can't like do the streams or anything like we do. The fancy folks, us here in the big city with my 5 Mbps, right? But I mean, I think the goalposts in terms of what qualifies as a necessity has changed because I mean, things like water can be like water systems can be owned by the city or the state or whatever the case might be, right? There are things like food stamps, so no one is really, and we have a plethora. We have a very very great excess of food in the United States, so it's not as though anyone's exactly hurting for food. There are ways to find food, whether it's through your local church or whether it's through food bank or food stamps or what have you. Whether you're getting your food through the state or through a private organization, no one's hurting food.
Is food
But
your
I mean,
only
this
issue
is
though? I mean,
well for the average person, no. I mean, for the average person, what they're concerned about is, how do I pay for my internet?
No, not.
Whereas,
Well,
even 10 years ago,
the average person today is running around going, "Where's my toilet paper?" You saw it, okay?
true, true. Yeah, so I mean, the goalposts of what a necessity is have shifted over time. It's whether those goalposts are going to move forward or not, and I think that is the general goal of a congregated society of how do we move those goalposts of what constitutes a necessity? How do we move those goalposts ever further and improve
that's
life
fair
generally?
enough, but like MC, you've been down to Atlanta, right? You go down there regularly. You've seen the South. It still looks like Reconstruction. All right, I was in
But they don't.
Louisiana.
But they don't. They don't live that way. Okay, they don't live like it's reconstructed.
I was
If
in
you,
Louisiana, man.
they don't. They have cars. They have automobiles. All right. They have modern conveniences that did not exist back in that time frame.
I well, I think what you're doing is you're confusing cultural relevance for how do I explain it? You're confusing cultural relevance for economic necessity. I think some. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not as if Reconstruction doesn't have any effect, or Reconstruction isn't this minuscule thing in the South. I mean, it most certainly is. Reconstruction is a huge, huge, huge part of the South's history. The Civil War is a huge, huge, huge part of the South's history due to the fact that it essentially altered the economic and cultural path that the South had taken. But I mean, it isn't as if the goalposts of what constitutes a necessity haven't moved.
That's a fair enough point. What I what I think I'm trying to bring up is being down in the South, right? I was in Louisiana. I was there. No, driving down the road, dude, look left and right and you see shacks. You see wrecked ass houses. You see garbage. You know what I mean? Like this isn't growing up on the West Coast. it isn't here. You know what I mean? There was a definite cultural difference.
Of course, it's cultural differences. You're going to have to say that there aren't going to be cultural differences is not the issue here, right? What you're doing, what we're talking about though, is how it modified those cultural differences, all right, from the 1800s in Crawley's world to today, all right. The culture that of the South as it exists today, all right, within the larger time frame, does not exist, all right, or did not exist. It's not the same way they were living in the 1860s. It's not. All right. They don't have any kind of real commonality. All right. They have certain traditions that have carried over, just like we have certain traditions, all right, no matter what area of the nation that you're living in, that carry over. But it's not the average way of life that these people were living. I guarantee that the average person in Tucson, Arizona in the 1870s is not living the lifestyle, all right, of the average person, all right, or even the majority of the people as they exist, the vast majority of the people as they exist in Tucson today. Why? Because that lifestyle is gone. Indoor plumbing is just one example. All those shacks that you're seeing, I'll bet they all have toilets.
Um, I totally understand, and all right, I'm gonna do my disclaimer here. Mad Dodger Productions does not necessarily agree or disagree with any opinion of the panel or the host himself. That being said, all right, I'm gonna say something that's gonna be a little bit edgy. All right. So, one thing I noticed growing up, my mom would use the N word, right? She'd say nigger this, nigger that. And I just looked at her and went, whatever, and rolled my eyes, right? I went down Louisiana. You know those shacks I was talking about? My dad would be like, yeah, there's that nigger shack right there. Like that's the term they use. Yeah, no, and you could laugh, and that's why I gave my disclaimer because, like, god damn it, I know this is horrible, but like seriously, you're sitting there calling this a nigger shack. What he's saying is this is a poor ass shack that needs to be yanked down. You know, like that's what he means by it. I get it, but damn it, dude.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from. Like a great example would be like for instance, my grandpa. My grandpa, very religious man, goes to a church that holds beliefs that I maybe don't value as an individual, right? But he very ardently holds on to the belief that women essentially belong in the kitchen, right? Anytime I've ever talked to him about, oh yeah, me and my girlfriend would love to go on a hike with you. Oh yeah, great, Josh, I'd love to have you along. Cool. What about my girlfriend? No, she can make us a sandwich. So it's paraphrasing, right, to some extent. But I mean, there are those cultural differences, and those cultural differences they will modify themselves over time, right? And do keep in mind that relative to the average culture of the average Californian, I am relatively speaking a Nazi, right? And I'm not even my grandpa. I'm relatively liberal compared to. So I mean, it's all relative. I mean, a lot of this shit that we're talking about, it's relative to the economy, the hardships that these people were undergoing. Even 100 years ago, the hardships these people were undergoing was, tremendous. You're talking about Dust Bowl, you're talking about Great Depression, and even today, we don't have to deal with a lot of that shit.
Well, no, and like, okay, so I was listening to some music earlier. My son is back home, and I'm really happy about that. I'm glad he's back home. I've missed him. It's been a while. He's been over at his mom's house, so that's a good thing. But he was back home, and we got somehow we got onto the topic of forced busing. Yeah,
Of what?
me
Sorry?
me talking about forced busing. I'm sure this is gonna go well.
Wait. Force busing? What is this?
You don't know what forced busing is? MC, please
I
explain
think
to
I
him
do.
what forced busing is.
Forced busing is basically the mandated busing by the government, specifically by the judiciary, to say that okay, this school is too white and this school is too black, and therefore we're going to take some of the students from the white school and we're going to move them to the black school, and some of the students from the black school and move them to the white school.
Oh. Well, I mean, you see, then again, there's one of those perfect examples of cultural differences. I had no idea what force busing was.
Court ordered busing. That's what it's called.
Yeah, no, and yeah, to say the least, I was opposed to that. And no, I had to explain to him exactly why it was bad. So I went into a 45-minute conversation on why forced busing is bad. And that's fine. You know, like I get to teach my son shit. You know what I mean? Like it's okay. But damn, did I really have to have the forced busing conversation? Was that something that was really necessary? Really, in 2020? I don't think it was.
But with your child, of course it is. That's called parenting.
I suppose. I mean, that's teaching them about history, right? Because they don't do that anymore.
Oh, they're not gonna. You got to remember, parenting in a lot of ways is about okay, explaining to your children why the world doesn't revolve around and rise and set at their whim, and doesn't revolve around them, right? You as a parent, right? When your child comes into the world, the child is totally dependent upon you, and you treat the child with care. You take care of the child. Well, one of the problems is as the child grows, they start naturally assuming that this is normal to be taken care of, to have everything delivered to them. Not, it's the idea that the world is a harsh place to be and you got to make your own way in the world isn't something that comes natural to them. All right. And as they turn into teenagers and so forth, as they start to explore, they're taking their world that they're seeing and they're trying to say, okay, how do I fit? How does this actually work? What are the dynamics? Because they're not nearly as experienced as the adults. So you have to explain these kinds of things to them. They're going to ask all sorts of crazy questions. You're going to look at them and go, where the hell did you hear this? Normally they hear it from their stupid friends, which always makes you wonder, is that kid freaking got the wrong set of friends, you want to go out there and beat the other person's kids. But that's a separate issue, right? This is part of the whole parenting dynamic that exists out there.
No, and you're absolutely right. Like, I totally want to beat the shit out of his friends' fucking parents. But, that's just me. I'm an asshole. It is what it is.
You're a parent. Every parent says that. Every parent is like, what are you teaching my child, you freaking dingleberry?
Yeah, I mean, you're a fucking moron. Get bent.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not a parent, but I definitely imagine that one of the sources of those frustrations in trying to get your child to understand that they're not exactly the center of the world is, I mean, they do get used to that kind of institutionalized like education, right? They get used to essentially everything being given to them as their child. And then when you are trying to teach them, when they're at their most malleable, in their teenage years, and you're trying to teach them that they aren't the center of the universe, in comes the state and saying, oh, well, I mean, you deserve all these grants. Don't you want to go to college? Don't you want these special grants? You want the money? Don't you want to get a high education? You deserve it. And so it's, the steady creeping, that is the parenting of the state. So I can imagine how that's one more, additive that's relatively frustrating.
Actually, that's one thing that I will say my son is doing correctly. He's looking at trade schools. He's looking at being a mechanic, and he wants to go to Job
Very good.
Corps and be a mechanic. I am totally behind this idea. You know what I mean? Like, good for you, son.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
I
way
looked
better
at
than.
him though. I looked at him and I said, "What?" Okay, when I was in high school, we had a joke about Job Corps girls, right? They go to Job Corps and they come home pregnant. That was a joke, right? So I looked at him and go, "Hey, don't knock anybody up, all right? Like, just don't do it. It's a bad idea. Don't do it." And I know that made him awkward because he gave me that awkward look. And I'm like, whatever. I don't care, son. Just don't knock him up. I don't do it.
Well, it's true. Don't do it. Don't knock anyone up that you can't pay for.
Yeah, right? Like, and you know what I mean, right? I heard you giggle. You know what I mean. The Job Corps joke. The women go to
No
Job
harm.
Corps and they come home pregnant. That is the joke, and there's a reason for it.
No, I did hear. I did hear that growing up. Yes. I mean, I don't know. The same principle behind the Job Corps girls is the same principle behind credit card debt. Don't rack up anything you can't pay for. A life lesson to you kids out there, huh?
Considered a life lesson for the kid.
Well, no, and MC, I get it. You were silent because you don't know much about Job Corps, I'm guessing. But no, that there's a reason that's the joke. Like,
No, I understand the reason. I get the joke. All right, I get, there's plenty of other similar concepts or similar situations that I could apply it to. The military just being one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so I mean, you can look at that point. The reason I'm being silent is I'm busy doing other things while I'm talking to you all.
all right, so
I'm actually doing my job. I'm actually doing my job. You just don't see it.
what you're working? You're working at like 6 a.m. your time, like 3, 4. Oh, it's 5:02 your time. Like you're working.
It's 3:22 my time.
Oh, you're in my time zone. Okay. You're
Yes,
in the correct one.
yes. I'm in Arizona. Arizona doesn't shift to the East Coast.
I don't know. How do
Arizona-
I know? Yeah,
Arizona doesn't have daylight savings.
That is correct. Currently, we're on Mountain Standard Time, which is daylight savings time for the Pacific.
Well, welcome to the proper time zone. We welcome you.
You invaded our time zone. We can go back home.
No, actually, 40, you're not allowed here. We don't want Californians up here. It's just not allowed.
This perfect timing. Perfect timing, because I do have to go anyways.
So
You've now insulted him. Look at what you have done.
Yes,
Look at what you have done.
we were having a perfectly good discussion about metaphorical things, and this is what you did to me.
And now we have to leave. Look.
Oh,
yeah,
Leave
yeah.
it.
Like, how dare you? How dare you?
Oh no! Don't get him up with that. Oh, the pain.
All right, 40. Take it easy, man. And no, I think we're gonna wrap it up anyway. MC, I saw that you set up a morning show. You want to give anybody a preview of what you're gonna talk about, or what?
Oh, for the news? No, just general news that I find interesting. All right, of the day. Let's see.
Oh.
Let's if you really want to know some of the stories that I'm going to talk about, well, I'm going to talk about Sanders and his little bitch fit about New York kicking him off the ballot. I'm going to talk about Kim's health.
I was about to say, what did you do to Kim Jong Un?
Okay.
What'd you do to him, MC?
I'm going to talk about the bitter Cuomo when Trump said there and said why should the taxpayers bail out blue states. I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court ruling on Obamacare and also the Supreme Court ruling on.
Oh my God! I don't even know. No, I don't even know. You have to tell me. Did they rule in favor of Obamacare?
In this situation, yeah, they did.
Son of a fucking cunt.
It's well, you got to understand what they were talking about. In this case, the insurance companies sued the federal government, saying you mandated that we issue these things under the promise that you would, reimburse us. Reimbursement. And they're saying you have to fund these. You have to fund these things. The federal government is on the hook. If you funded it, you're on the hook to fund it.
Oh my God! And the Supreme Court said no.
No, the Supreme Court said no. You have to fund. You have to fund it.
Oh my God! That is actually a negative to Obamacare.
No, it's a positive. It's a positive to Obamacare because it keeps it alive. It forces Congress that if Congress doesn't want Obamacare to continue to exist, they have to repeal Obamacare. They can't just say, "Okay, we're going to."
But Congress is ran by the Republicans right now.
No, it's not. Nancy Pelosi holds the purse strings. You act like they had total control.
No, yeah, okay. The House. You want to talk about the House? You're correct. I'm talking about the Senate, sir.
I don't say Congress, because whether you like it or not, Congress doesn't exist in a one-party state mode right now.
The Senate is different from the House, and the Senate is gonna back that up.
Okay, but unless you can get the Congress to end Obamacare. Congress, both houses have to agree to end Obamacare. One house can't. Both of them have to agree.
No, you're right. We have to push the House through. But we're slightly negative in the House. No,
they're significantly negative in the House, and they're probably going to. The Republicans are probably going to lose the Senate.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I do.
I think so. Yeah.
I think it's a very good chance that the Republicans lose the Senate. There's a better chance for the Republicans to take back the House, all right, than to maintain control of the Senate. You can see it.
Who's up for election? Rand Paul, he'll win. Lindsey Graham, he'll win. I mean, who's up?
Who's up? Martha McSally. She's very, very likely to lose. All right. There are a number of GOP senators, including the one in Georgia after her fiascos. All right. She's likely to lose. All right. And they only need to lose 3. They only need to lose 3.
You're right. It's really close. You do have a point.
And you have 2/3 of the people. There's 1/3 of the Senate is always up for election every 2 years. In this situation, of the 33 senators up for re-election, 23 of them are Republican.
Yeah, but I mean, you have people like Rand Paul who are gonna win automatically.
So that's great. You got for Rand Paul, but for every Rand Paul, you have a Martha McSally. That's going to be in a fight for their lives to sit out their political lives in this case. That's what I'm referring to. So it doesn't take much to defend. The Republicans have to defend all of their seats, all 23 of them. All right. The Democrats only need to defend 10, and they just need to flip 3.
Do you think
Revert.
they can actually do it though in the current political standoff?
When it comes to elections, the question is whether or not Trump will have coattails. Because let's be honest, Trump's going to win re-election, but will he have coattails to carry the day? All right, for these senators. Yeah. All right, the GOP, the way the GOP looks, okay, they're upset. The GOP electorate, they're upset with many of these officials. All right, Martha McSally is in trouble because in the state of Arizona, they're upset with her. All right, because she was weak. Now she's trying to come back and try and defend herself, but she looked weak, all right? And she came out weak. Nobody likes her in this state because she's part of the GOP establishment in this state, and the GOP establishment in this state is at odds with the GOP base in the state. The establishment in the state is for the most part, is very anti-Trump. The ones that sit up there and jumped on I'm pro-Trump right away, like our governors, right, did. They got rewarded. But the ones that were waffling on Trump, like McSally was, they're going to pay the price. And this is just one example. Now, and that's locally where the problem is. If you take a look at the woman from Georgia, she's in trouble, okay, because when with this recent thing, this recent as virus hit and everything, she was one of the ones that dumped stock. And of course the media is playing all that up. So she's on the defense. All right. And there's a couple more that are on the defense. Where a likely pickup will be for the GOP will be in Alabama, where Sessions will probably take back his seat from Doug Jones. But
well, and I don't know if Louisiana is up, but if the next time it comes up, I bet you it flips Republican. Louisiana is sick of the bullshit. They really are.
We'll see. All right, but I mean, but it's going to be local issues will dominate up for local races to a large extent. Now, it is a national election. You do have a presidential candidate. Presidents generally, notice the word, generally have coattails. Okay, that means people that are positive toward whoever the presidential candidate is that's being voted into office or voted for, they generally will also down ballot help them out. But in the case of someone like Trump, okay, Trump could be an easy outlier here because he's at odds with the establishment as a whole. Then that includes the GOP establishment. So whether or not he's going to be able to carry the day with his coattails, we won't know until Election Day. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to be more difficult than people realize.
Okay, but we have Kentucky, Pennsylvania, we have Arizona, Nevada. A lot of these states are gonna flip red. They and
for the president, maybe, but that doesn't mean they're gonna flip red for the Senate. Like I said, the issues are local for the Senate, not national for the president.
That is true, and go ahead, 40. I heard you trying to say something.
No, it's pretty much MC wrapped it up quite nicely in a little bow, essentially. I mean, it's a lot of the issues concerning some of these individual states are they might ride a little bit in terms of what the president might think. You'll see like some of these senators or whatever, they'll end up siding with Trump or, declaring their allegiance to Trump or not declaring their allegiance to Trump. And depending on what kind of state you're in, that may or may not benefit them. But I mean, I do think that now that the kind of initial blitzkrieg of the coronavirus is over and done with, right? And now we're entering the kind of more steady stream of fact that you're gonna start to see people rise and fall in terms of whether they want to open the economy up. Whether we want to start lifting some of these restrictions in terms of, oh, you have to wear a mask in public, or oh, we're gonna lift the quarantine or what have you. Because I mean, a lot of people are really itching to get back.
Okay,
I mean, you
well,
can't tell me that like 11% of the people in the United States don't want to fucking work, and that the
well,
coronavirus hasn't been a major impediment.
well,
A lot of
no,
people are going to want to side with these Republican representatives that are wanting to open the economy back up.
they are, and I'm right there with them, and I know you sit kind of on the other side of the fence on this one. Where do you
Eh,
fall when your representatives start having this argument?
well, I mean, the problem is that here's the thing. We're, like I said previously, we're over the initial blitzkrieg of the coronavirus. Okay, generally speaking, we are starting to map out how it is that the virus mutates. We're starting to kind of kick tests out. Tests are becoming a relatively consistent in terms of their administration, right? You're starting to see it was a problem about a month ago, right? Tests were not being administered properly, I don't think, or at least not the way I would have done it
The
personally.
the
But
tests have improved, but they're
you
still
see,
not
well,
very good to be.
yeah, well, I mean, then again, that depends on whether or not we're buying our tests from China, right? Spoilers, right? Spoilers for some of you nations that are about to undergo your own, local elections, whether you're in Italy or not. Cough, cough. Fucking pasta people. But no, I mean, the
Pasta people, is that what you just said?
pasta people. Yes, Italians. Italians, as they're colloquially known. So I mean,
I
this
like
this
that. I'm not the only racist on the stream. That's awesome.
no,
Go
but I mean,
ahead.
but I mean, my larger point is that we are over the initial blitzkrieg of the coronavirus, right? Generally speaking, we are doing better than expected in terms of primarily due to like the social distancing and the fact that Trump shut it down early and everything. It's in part due to him that we should be grateful that we don't have 100,000 dead or whatever it is that was projected previously if there was no intervention. But I mean, now in the more rural parts, especially, people are begging for the economy to be reopened, right? And in some of these bigger areas, I can understand if people are going to side with their representatives and saying shut it down, Black. But there are definitely huge, 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 huge segments of the American population that want to go back to work, and people are gravely underestimating. And I think that a lot of people are gonna, if only temporarily, they're gonna start siding a little bit more with the Republicans in terms of, I might have a shit minimum wage job, but I mean, I need to go back to work. I need to pay I need to pay rent. These 1,200 Trump bucks are amazing, but they're not going to pay my bills for the next 2-3 months or whatever the case. So I definitely think that coronavirus is a bit of a factor, but it's like MC said as well. I mean, coattails of the presidential election. Who's going to come out in favor of? Who is more loyal to Trump rather than their local representatives, and would they be willing to vote for their local representative due to the fact that they support Trump? There's a lot of factors at play here, I think.
Okay, so here's the thing though, guys. Like, alright, I'm not gonna vote for Trump. I'm not. I'm gonna vote libertarian. I'm gonna vote down my line.
What you're going to vote for is you're going to vote for the Democrats to continue to screw you over your state. Congratulations.
I was waiting on that, and that's okay. Okay, and now we move past that.
Because you put your freaking priorities, your personal priorities, your personal proclivities, knowingly of what is better for the nation. Congratulations. Because you know that your person for the Libertarian Party you don't even know who it is, and you're already saying, I'm going to vote for that person. that person's policies are, all right, because you're relying upon people who said, well, this is what libertarianism is. And you even know that libertarians are at each other's throats because they disagree with things. And you're already saying, I'm not going to vote for Trump because I'm going to vote for the libertarian candidate. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. I'm not even arguing with you. I'm not. You know, you're not wrong. What I'm saying is that's the way I'm gonna vote. So, do you actually see the Democrats voting Donald Trump this election? Do you see like a build up of people like the Reagan Democrats actually rising up? I don't see that happening.
Well, I mean, the problem is that you saw that in the last election, didn't you? Right, you saw a plethora of Democrats and kind of the more swingy states that would say, "Ah, well, I mean, all these Democrats and I don't know if I can vote for the Bernie Sanders. People are getting a little too progressive for me." Especially in the more southern states, and there are even parts of the rural left coast that you're forgetting about, Mad, that have swung to the Republican side of the fence, and kind of neglected the Democrats as they stand today. So I mean, you will definitely see those people come out once again, but I mean the problem is that whether the Republicans will be able to retain that voter base after Trump left office. I think that's the more I think that's a question that's a little more pertinent. I mean, you've had the black voter base voting more heavily for Republican than they have in a very long time. More Latinos voting for Republican. It's you've had a very huge influx in terms of the Republican voter base as it stands today. It's whether or not the Republicans can keep that in the long term. I think that's the more interesting question, personally. So I mean,
it is an interesting dynamic that does add to that. Very true. All right, because Trump did win a higher percentage of the black vote, and the black turnout, of course, was low, simply because, quite frankly, their candidate, Obama, wasn't. It's in comparison to how blacks turned out for Obama. Okay, the black vote turned out for Obama. The numbers of black votes was considerably down. Do you see the blacks returning to Trump, or do you see the blacks returning to the Democrat plantation and going back and voting for Biden? I don't see the blacks in this election returning to Biden right now. Now, that doesn't mean that the blacks won't return to the next in the same manner. You got to remember something. It doesn't take much of the black vote to shift who wins a race. But that's also one of the reasons why when you talk about the down ballot, where the coattails can fall apart. Because, okay, so let's say instead of the 95% of the blacks voting for the Democrat candidate for Joe Biden, only 90 or 89% do. In that case, okay, Biden is going to lose, and he's going to lose in most of the states by large margins. Okay, if that's the case. However, is that also going to apply then to Martha McSally? Is that going to apply to the senator from Georgia? All right. Do they also vote for the Republican there? Do they say, okay, I'm going to vote that straight line ticket of GOP? I don't think that's going to necessarily happen.
No.
We lost Mad Dodge.
Oh, we did.
He's looking for his libertarian coffee. Actually, he's probably looking for any coffee.
No, it just took me a minute, but no, I think you guys are actually right on point when it comes down to it. I think it's gonna boil down to after this next race. I think we know who's gonna win it. Donald Trump is gonna be president again. That's just what's gonna happen. So we're gonna have to wait for the next race. On that point, I'm gonna go to bed. So, hey, MC, you got a morning show coming up. Shout it out.
Yeah, I do morning every morning at 6 a.m. I do just a MC rant kind of thing where I just go over the news stories that I found interesting of the day, and I do this Monday through Friday. And so if you would like, come and join me. It'll be at 6 a.m. my time, which is in about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
All right, awesome. 40 ounce, dude. You doing anything anymore? What's up?
Nah, not really. Oh, I've laughed. I've run out of Corona stuff to laugh at pretty much. You know, the initial surge of people getting stabbed in WalMarts for toilet paper has essentially run dry. So I have nothing to laugh at really. Oh gosh, I don't know. I'll probably not do anything for a while. My Corona casts have run dry. Afraid.
All right, well, if that's the case, then thank you very much. This has been Mad Dodge Productions. We are out of here in a minute because I gotta open up OBS. Shut it down.
Penis. Penis.
Good night, everybody.
Penis. You haven't stopped it. Penis. Penis. I can't say penis faster. You gotta stop, Mad Dog. Penis.
Has he ended the stream?
Have I? Penis. Oh, I think he's still going. Penis.
Chapter
Mad
1.
Dodge. End it.
Hod, the manifestation of Nuit, the unveiling of the company of heaven.
Mad Dodge. End it. Penis. God damn it, Mad Dodge. Stop it. Why are you making me do this?